you. No, here's the thing, Dom. There's a whole bunch of angles on this. The reason why I brought up the Rekkles angle is I actually saw that clip where you were just on like hate viewing the Fnatic subreddit. And dude, this is the thing about how fans project. They always tell you that you do what they do religiously. So the joke is, even though Rekkles doesn't play for Fnatic, remember what every Rekkles fan tells you, Dom, stop mentioning him or you're just like obsessed. So logically, they'd have no reason to reference Rekkles in a match now about Fnatic. He doesn't play for Fnatic, right? In fact, the guy who plays for Fnatic is way better. That comment I saw that you found is just like, dude, they're on another level. They're actually on another level. The one where they just
gaslight you, literally.
This is a level of cope I have never even seen achieved since like prime TSM at Worlds. It's when they said that the reason why Fnatic lost is because they were putting Noah on an island by himself. Are you ready? Like
Rekkles.
Now, just see what that was. One, they didn't do that at all. 2, you'll find out soon, he puts himself on the island. And then 3, there's no universe where the problem in the past splits was everyone else except Rekkles. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you guys inserted that. I just thought it was an amazing comment, dude. Like, the genius of really nutter fan comments is they're not actually that predictable. I can't know what angle they're going to take because the level of copium is just going to be so fucking bonkers. Like, that's almost like the level of creativity. I can almost admire it, you know.
I really like it because that's the first step in like gaslighting somebody, right? Like they start by saying like, oh, well, Noah's just put on an island again. And then like in 5 years time, when everything's muddied, it's like, you know, Rekkles and Noah were pretty much just as good as each other. I mean, they were the same exact player. It was just that the way the team played at that time was just putting them both on an island. Like, it's like Noah was borderline MVP. Like Rekkles was borderline MVP then. They'll be able to spin it all back. I really respect that level of just manipulation. It's something that you don't get to see that often for teams. Like a lot of teams will just flame the people that are playing bad, but some fan bases are specific. So that was some content from Fnatic subreddit. I really liked how like not only did that happen, but then obviously Humanoid and Razor, who've been playing pretty well the entire summer split, they just started getting strays. It's like, yep, and once again Razor and Humanoid rear their heads and it's their fault. Like we knew this was coming. Like. And then they condescend to you and everything. So I absolutely love going Fnatic subreddit. It's one of my favorite pieces of content.
Right, obviously, as I've done on some of the past episodes, I usually do like to save a little spicy detail just for people every now and then. And since they're going to bring up Rekkles, Dom, and never stop talking about it, even when I had no plans to on this episode, I would have just talked about Noah, who to me was the MVP of the split before. And yeah, his games weren't as impressive in the playoffs. Maybe I could have made shades of illusions how Rekkles played because he played a little bit passive, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. I have got a little Rekkles gem for you that was relevant to this year. So think earlier back in the year, guys. Remember when, as absolute peon pleb cretins who don't understand how narratives work, just like the year before, a couple of years earlier when that upset couldn't play at Worlds and that Bean guy played and you were like, he's actually great, I think he should be the LEC starter, and then every LEC GM and coach was like, no thank you, and basically like, mate, it's done. Like the joke is you'll never see that guy in the LEC. Same thing, because Hylissang had that thing where they were arriving late and they played that Rocks guy. You were all like, hey, Rocks was half decent. I want him as the starter. That's right. Listen, as bad as Hylissang ever was, you chose Rocks as the primary starter of Fnatic over Hylissang. And you were loving that in the first split. But remember, after like 1.5 LEC games, he was already busted and completely washed and never made it, right? This is a detail that when you know, because here's the thing, Dom, I have at this point in time, like the metaphor is there's a dam that is me on these talk shows, and I'm just letting through the odd Rekkles story. But I'll just give you a little tease, Dom. The dam's going to completely break real soon. But okay, let's not get too excited. Okay. But I'll give you another one just coming out of the sluice, just coming out of the pipe. Here's one for you. You know that marvelous Rekkles guy presents himself as a leader, a great teammate, always tries to like work with his friend. Here's what this guy's like. So you know the Rocks guy, he's coming into Fnatic. A lot of pressure on you if you're playing Fnatic, especially if you're filling Hylissang's shoes. The guy was a champion, went to World Semis, finals even, right? Here's a detail I heard. I heard Rekkles was so stupid, he talked shit about Rocks to someone who, let's just say, because Rocks is from Portugal, is either Portuguese or Spanish, another player, and didn't know that player's just friends with Rox and just went and told him, like, yeah, Rekkles said all this stuff about you. So you can imagine his confidence was fucking shot completely. I wonder why they played like they didn't even know each other in those games, ran it down completely, and he was fired from his job, because that's the thing. Until recently, it's always Rekkles' support, or they're the team that gets fired, until he himself got fired and benched. But anyway, that's just a little gem for you, just a little one I'd show in there, because obviously the way it's presented publicly, Dom, you would assume like Rekkles is a veteran, he's had all these teams. You should understand, if you're a veteran, you're bringing a player in, better take the pressure off him. Why are you talking shit about a guy behind the scenes? Why a guy in his rookie split? Like, that's just egregious, mate.
I mean, they played 9 games together, right? Like, that was it. So,
wild,
yeah, I mean, especially because I think that they also started pretty late, so they did not play together that much. But you could tell that neither of them was comfortable, and I think the biggest problem with that bot lane is that somebody has to take the L, and neither of them wanted to take the L. I think in that situation, if you're actually a top tier AD carry, you just go the Han Sama route. You say, fuck it, like, this guy can play engage supports, we're playing engage supports. We're doing the Mickey X type of laning, where we're just playing engage supports, we're playing Kai'Sa, we're playing Kalista, we're playing like Draven, we will just Samira, we're just gonna find something aggressive. Look, my favorite team is fucking OMG. They do that shit to this day. Like, they are finding just non-stop Tristana bot lane angles. They're like, yeah, we just play Tristana. Like, we think it's an OP champion. We'll play it with engage, and we're just going to play to kill the lane. Even when everyone is playing Milio and Yuumi and all this shit, they find ways to be aggressive, and neither of them wanted to do that. So it was really tough to watch. I'm happy that that's gone now.
Because as we say, I'll tie it back to what I said earlier. To me, this team has nothing to do with the one that was in the past with Rekkles and the other players. Like, this team's a totally different breath of fresh air. I even think the most hilarious side comment I saw was that dumbass take where they went like, so Fnatic finishes 9th in a split and people really thought they were going to go further. Yeah, the player they added is the best player on the team, you fucking cretin. Probably like the top 3 player in the LEC now. So let's go to the actual team now then, Dom. What do you think happened? Like, this was mega shocking. It's not just like the fact they lost. The way they lost was so underwhelming.
So I guess the inside info that I had that isn't really inside anymore, because it was brought up on one of my streams, was that the scrims are going like absolutely terrible. So something happened where their practice was really good, the practice became really bad, and now the team is just like losing confidence in one another. So I think that's like the mental side of what's going on, because you could tell that they just looked like so willing to lose to SK. Like, there wasn't any grit, there wasn't a back and forth. It was like SK started winning the game, they're like, sure, take it, like, we'll just go lower bracket. And yeah, I mean, as a result, when the vibes are different, everyone's playing worse individually. Like, Ascaridon, I think, was one of the best top laners in LEC over the 9 games, right? Like, he was just a beast. He was always ahead. Like, he's always ahead. He's always relevant in team fights. He was just always doing his job. I mean, the team was beating everyone because they were pretty much ahead everywhere early game. And now when you see Ascaridon getting his head caved in by Irrelevant, and then bot lane's no longer getting leads, I think it's tough. And then the other thing I would say about where it's going wrong is I think that the team in general got hit by the meta. I think the meta changes on 13-13. A lot of the champions that Trimby was good at, you know, like Milio, Yuumi, are nowhere close to as strong. And that was always the advantage that I perceived Trimby having over other supports in Europe. It seemed like when we get into engage metas, it's always going to be like Mickey X and Hilly that are just the best. But Trimby was better than those guys at enchanters most of the time. And yeah, those champions are just no longer in the meta. So now you're having to play things like Rel bot lane. It seems like Razork also is pretty slow to pick up champions. I think it's one of the weaknesses of Razork. So Rel is not something that they're like playing and flexing, and it looks really good for them. We didn't see any Ivern. Like, Ivern's getting banned, but we don't know if they actually are, you know, capable of playing it. And then we saw weird things happen. Like, Fnatic, I believe in game 2, I'm just going to check this, but I'm pretty sure in game 2, Fnatic was banning LeBlanc on blue side, which is like, I don't know how they got from... Yeah, I don't know how they got from being the first team to play Static Shiv LeBlanc to like being like, no, we have to ban the LeBlanc from ourselves. I mean, that was something that looked mega OP when they played it. And it's not that much different on 13-13 than it was on 13-12. Like, pretty much the only difference is you don't take Demolish, and instead you take Dematerializer, because you want to be able to one-shot the wave, so you have to use your Dematerializer on the wave in order for your Static Shiv to one-shot, whereas before Static Shiv was so overtuned, you would just one-shot anyway. Outside of that, I mean, it feels like they should just be playing these champions, so I'm not sure what happened in their practice where they lost confidence in certain picks, but I think that there needs to be some level of confidence on stage where even if like in scrims, because you got to understand also Fnatic is scrimming top tier teams. They're probably
Of
scrimming
course,
G2 all the
yeah.
time, right? Like, because those are the teams that look the best and they're in opposite groups, right? So it'd make logical sense for Fnatic to scrim against G2 a lot. Don't take too much away from those scrims. If you do lose to like a top tier team, you don't have to be like, oh, well, now we can't play LeBlanc even versus the shit team. Like, if you're playing versus SK, you should just not react to the scrim so much and keep the things in your draft and like play a game on stage and see how it looks. I think that they need to relax and stop like tailoring their plan purely off scrims.
Oh, absolutely. The other thing as well is, I mean, you pointed out the players that were playing well. Like Noah was playing mega. Obviously, Oscar and then I think has leveled up way more from his first split. But I have to say, everyone loves his man. I can't believe how much this guy is fucking sucked for a year and a half, and he just gets a pass every time. Humanoid was a fucking bomb in this series. It was a fucking bomb. And by the way, he hasn't always been bad this split. Like, I remember the game they lost to SK where he actually had like a pretty clean, like, Xerath game. He's looking fucking good. Dude, he was absolutely whacking this season. Stop that shit that you all do with Armor. Like, the thing about him is he just doesn't like feel like the game that much. So, you know, like, sometimes he's just not engaged. This is the time. Remember, guys, they don't get to go to Worlds unless they come something like fucking third or something. Yeah, they have to come in the top three just to get into the championship thing. Like, this is literally what you are paying this guy an enormous salary for. So that's why I told you, like, I already think it's funny to be like, I can fuck around and party and then I like try when I want if you're fucking Soaz and you can just first pick anything and win on it in playoffs. I think it's funny to be like, wonder, like, I'm actually, it's something I heard about, I'm actually better if I don't scrim. Like, I'm a guy who just thinks conceptually about my champion picks, and essentially it burns me out if I scrim and solo queue too much, and I just play the scrims, then we win in the play. That's cool if you win.
Also,
if you don't win, it's fucking whack.
The storyline of Wonder was also like mega overhyped. Like, he did play like a lot of solo queue at times. Like during spring split, I still heard that shit. He was literally 1300 LP. Like that's like top 20 on the ladder. Like, what do you want from this fucking guy? So I think that was one of the things the community, like, there was a point where he wasn't playing that much, and then when things went south, or like when he felt like he needed to up his performance, he would play a lot of solo queue. He was somebody who would grind. Even when I would do those worlds tracking the pros streams, like the worlds bootcamp streams, he would put in like 200 games like everyone else. Like, it wasn't like he just wasn't playing at all. So that narrative definitely was like way too far.
And I can just tell you, like I just referenced, I actually heard that's part of why that was one of his worst splits ever. Because people say, apparently in G2 at the time, Dom, they just actually made like a rule, like everyone had to play like I think it was like 5 solo queue games a day or something, right? And no joke, Wonder basically, like, it just made his game worse. Like, he is a guy where apparently that just fucks them. I'm not joking, by the way. That's not like a meme. Apparently he really would just like think or like watch a VOD on and then think through like a matchup, like, that's how I might play it, you know? And he was more like a theory guy. Now, as you say, if you go to Worlds, by the way, when everything's on the table, you've actually got a good team. Yeah, you're going to go fucking ham. His point was, and I think everyone's learned this, all the veterans, is you don't burn yourself out constantly throughout the split. The problem I have with this is, like I say, this is the last chance saloon for Humanoid.
Yep.
Like, after this, it's just over. And if it's over, guys, what a fucking whack, like 2 years in general in context, but especially the last year and a half. Just fucking whack, boys. Like, this is just pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they don't know what to play. The Azir picks from Humanoid, I think it was really funny because I have a bunch of people that played with Humanoid in call with me, right? So I have Upset, I have Wonder, and I have Yamato. And the one thing they were saying after game one, because game one went really poorly and Humanoid was on Azir, and Yamato said after this Azir game, he won't play Azir the rest of the playoffs. Like, if I know anything about Humanoid, and then he just goes back and he plays Azir the next game, and it was like, what the fuck? Like, shit. Yeah, and then he just like also ran it down. So it's like, I don't know what his mindset is within the team. People are really confused about his mindset because normally he's the guy who is going to try something, and if it doesn't go well and he doesn't feel like he has agency in the game, which is the main thing apparently for him, he wants to feel like his champion is like important in the game. His champion can do things within the game. If that goes south, he normally will try to pivot to something that gives him more agency. And in this game number 2, man, like, it did not look like he was very happy playing the Azir. I mean, playing Azir into Akali, it can work in lane, but I feel like that is like one of the best situations possible for SK. When SK has Certus on Akali into an Azir matchup, he seems like he's always mega comfortable in that situation. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting to see him go back to the Azir, because Azir is a different champion than it was before. I think before, Humanoid was so comfortable blind picking Azir because Azir was the lane bully. Like, you had power in your queue, you would poke somebody out. now there's more power in your W, so you're kind of more like a scaling mage. Like you can still
Right.
push the lane, but you don't have the ability to like shit on your opponent, which is something that I feel like Humanoid really wants to do in games.
What about then the Noah angle? Because as I say, for me, he genuinely did look like an amazing rookie. Like obviously that he hasn't yet played the BL3s, which he now has. It did look like he played a bit baity, right? It did look like he sort of knew something was wrong.
I mean, I went back and I looked at his games, and I feel like a lot of the times, I mean, he's not in the same situations he was in before. He doesn't have the option of like winning these lanes super hard. Like he's first picking Kai'Sa, enemy team is answering with Xayah Rakan. And then if you look at like how Trimby's playing the map, what the team is trying to do, like they're giving bot lane pressure in order to do Herald. They're just putting Noah in a bad situation. Like they're and he's not able to really do much. It's just like Rekkles. It's just like what they did to Rekkles. No, I'm just kidding. Like, yeah, he's just Rekkles 2.0.
You're not wrong. In some senses, Rekkles demanding to play only certain champions, then getting completely countered in the draft, losing the game and barely doing anything. Actually, not too far off. Basically, when he plays, here's the real line for you guys. When Noah plays badly, I understand the Rekkles comparisons. When he plays well, I don't get it at all. Why are you talking about some guy from 2018? It's fucking irrelevant. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.